Good afternoon, everybody. I must say nervousness must be the theme of the day, especially after all these hard acts, right, to follow. So anyway, I'm Radhika. I'm part of Intel's AI Center of Excellence, and I thought I'd spend a few minutes today just to talk a little bit from an Intel perspective how we're seeing this changing AI landscape. So let's get started. So origins of AI, this is nothing new, right? I'm just trying to set the stage here to just talk about how, for the longest time, we've had data, right? And data is just a way of highlighting trends. If you take a look at this, it's a very simple example of ice cream sales as temperature goes on. We can draw a line through this data, and essentially, it's going to tell us the trend here. So this very early example of machine learning is a way back, ages and ages ago when AI came first into existence. In this case, we can use this data trends to predict future behavior. I think Secretary Tong mentioned earlier this morning that AI is not new, right? And here we have seen this as a technology that's really evolved, and it's being used across several industries to increase productivity and efficiency, to reduce costs, to improve user experiences, and just generally just to streamline processes across the board. So here are some examples that I have here. We have this example of the AI in the smart city, for example. Here we're using a model to monitor traffic patterns and adjusting the signal timings in order to improve traffic congestion and reduce commuter times. If you take this to education, we talked earlier about being equitable. So this is a way where if you use AI in education to serve underprivileged communities and to bring equity in kind of the learning process, if you will. In this example we have here, it's an AI-based text-to-speech application, and it's helping students essentially learn new languages more effectively, and it's broad-based. So it's reaching a lot more students than what's natively possible. And then, of course, wildfires, right? So AI can be used to predict wildfires, something very, very close to home for us here in California. So using the AI technology in that space allows these teams, of course, to be better prepared to respond to these incidents and to plan accordingly. So these are all examples of kind of traditional AI use cases that have been around for a while before it kind of became this really hyped and the new buzzword of today, if you will. So fast forward to today, and what do we have, right? We find ourselves here in this world of really complex, really large, really powerful models that go beyond the basic prediction capabilities and just this ability to generate new content from learning something that they're trained on. And the last decade in particular, we've seen a rapid expansion of the traditional AI machine learning type use cases into more deep learning type environments where, if you've received a recommendation for a book or a movie based on what you've watched before, that's a deep learning use case example that we're all familiar with. And now, just in the last 5 years, like if you look at this chart, right, from 2017 onwards, we've seen a 15,000-fold increase in the size of models and the complexity of models. And that's really in large part due to advancements in computing systems and, of course, data, right? We just have access to a large amount of data, and we're using that data with AI to be able to train those models, and then as well as better algorithms that are becoming more and more capable and intelligent to take advantage of that data. And of course, the last couple of years, you've seen this hockey stick effect that you see here, right, is what we're calling the Gen AI effect, if you will. The release of ChatGPT about a year ago, it's really introduced this concept of generative AI, and it's really taken the world by storm, if you will, right? It's created opportunities, and how many times have we used the word generative AI today, right, just in this last couple of hours? So there's no conversation today that Gen AI is not a part of. And we're finding that organizations are really grappling with the idea of how do you take this new technology and implement it in a way that makes sense for them, right? Without this fear of kind of falling behind if you don't adopt it. So there's lots of dialogue and discussion across industries on the different applications of generative AI, if you will. And it's really an opportunity now to fast-paced innovation, to be innovative in delivering a lot of the applications and capabilities using this technology. So those large models, what did we see? 175 billion, 1 trillion parameters, just massive, right? And really very overwhelming when somebody looks at it. So these large models, foundational models, right, they're trained on public data on the internet, and they cover a wide range of topics, which is why they are able to answer just about any question you can ask them, right? They're very versatile because they're able to respond to that based on the data they've been trained. But because of their size, they often need dedicated hardware infrastructure to be trained on and to be used and maintained, and they can also be pretty expensive when it comes to the training and deployment of those models. The good news, what we're seeing a lot of with Intel, with our conversations with customers, is that the vast majority of businesses and organizations and public sector use cases as well, they don't actually require these foundational models because there is no need for that level of generality when it comes to the usages of these in these organizations. We don't need a model that needs to know everything from sports to medicine to farming, right? The key thing is being able to be able to use smaller, kind of more specialized, what we call domain-specific models, which are essentially using or being trained and fine-tuned on data that's relevant to a given organization, right? And they're able to cater to specific needs of that organization. The advantage with these smaller models is they're, of course, much smaller in size, which means they are now easier to deploy and train. You can use existing infrastructure most of the time to do this. And they also tend to be more modular, right? So you can have these domain-specific models trained on specific data sets for finance, for legal, for HR, right? And so the applicability and the versatility of these extends across the organization once you have them kind of built out, if you will. So think of these as kind of personal or private models for a given organization because they are specific to that data set. This slide I have in here just to kind of show the scope and scale that these kind of specialized models can provide, right? So they have use cases, they have applications across every industry, as you see here, including government, and they allow basically these AI capabilities to be scaled cost effectively across a range of use cases, much more so than some of the larger models, which require a lot of investment and capital resources. Honing in a little bit kind of in the public sector space, if you will, right? There are several instances where we think generative AI is applicable, and a lot of the folks today have talked about many of these, already. But a couple of ones I wanted to highlight are really in the text and voice-based multilingual communication space, especially in California, where multilingualism is really crucial. When you think about using generative AI for some of these applications, it really reduces a lot of the manual, time-consuming work that happens, and it's a great way to kind of augment existing processes, if you will. So if you just, for example, elections coming up next year, every county is going to have to be doing its own ballots. Using generative AI to kind of personalize this process is going to make it much more effective, as an example, right? Similarly, if you look at services provided by the DMV, which need to be multilingual, again, we need to be able to leverage generative AI for that purpose as well. Chatbots. Who hasn't used a chatbot, right? We have chatbots all around us. These are a great self-service tool that a lot of agencies and organizations are leveraging in order to help citizens across the board, they're not time-bound necessarily, so they can be used at any time of the day. They're used by volunteers at major events and conferences to be able to answer citizen questions. So a lot of applicability for Gen AI in the public sector. I think the key thing to understand here is that this is not a replacement. I think one of the panelists mentioned, right? There's no technology without people. So this is really, we view it as a way to augment processes, right? To enhance processes so that the workforce can actually spend the time doing more engaging and more empowered roles, if you will. So it's really about improving your current process and making them more efficient. I want to highlight here some of the benefits that we've seen as, for generative AI in the public sector. I talked about some of this in the previous slide, but really the implementation of AI in public sector use cases, and Gen AI specifically, can be very beneficial. But you see the purple border that I have around here. It has to be done in taking into account security and responsible AI, right? And being able to do it while meeting the privacy regulations and the privacy framework of a given organization. So that's crucial, and the previous speaker kind of alluded to that piece as well. There's a lot of benefits in terms of automating administrative tasks, data collection analysis, allowing employees to focus on more complex and strategic tasks versus the more kind of mundane manual elements, if you will. The key thing, I think, also is that the AI algorithms can analyze vast amounts of data, not just analyze it, but do it quickly. So this ability to do real-time data analysis and be able to influence the decisions that are made at the daily level, I think it becomes critical when you think about productivity and efficiency as well. And the one thing that I think when we think of Gen AI, we often think about applications running in the data center, right? But really, this is not limited to IT and back office operations, right? Gen AI applications can run on local PCs and desktops to help with several day-to-day activities. Think about creating meeting minutes or summaries, or even assistance drafting emails or summarizing research notes. None of the output from this may not be perfect, right? And I don't know if we want it to be perfect, quite honestly. But it's a start, right? It allows the user to be able to take that and refine it and kind of bring that human element and the human perspective into all of that as well. But it also now saves time in terms of productivity and efficiency for them to be able to go add to the tasks later. And so the last thing I want to talk about is this notion of kind of bringing AI everywhere, right? So our objective here is with Intel is we feel that in order for the benefits of artificial intelligence to be fully realized, we need to kind of enable that continuum from the client PCs all the way into the data center. And we need to be able to provide a way for users to be able to access AI applications and take the advantage of AI across the device of their choice for all of the use cases, right? And so it sounds simplistic, but it's really our way of kind of making sure that we are able to bring forth the innovation and the value of AI across the board for all users. And with that, I hope I'm just on time. Thank you for listening and for the opportunity.